in the state of Oregon over the last couple of decades that's kind of worked in to be an actual plan to where we have wolves roaming around. They've spread to a lot of different places. And what I wanted to do was talk about the history of the program, how widespread are the wolves and what to do if you encounter a wolf, and also talking about some of the issues that come up with poaching and predation. So we've got a lot to cover, but to do that, we brought in our expert. We have Michelle Dennehy joining us right now from ODFW. And Michelle, thank you. Thank you for being here. I know this is right before Thanksgiving. I'm happy that I was able to catch you to join the show. But I think to start off, I think going back to that history, the history of wolves in Oregon, can you talk to us about how long in this era that they've been coming here into the state?
Sure. So we actually had our first wolves come into Oregon from Idaho in the late 90s. A few wolves were actually found struck by vehicles. And then there was a wolf that came in, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service came and captured it and brought it back to Idaho. But when that happened, so that was late 90s, early 2000s, Oregon realized, okay, wolves are naturally going to migrate here from the population that was reintroduced into Yellowstone and Idaho. So we need to get ready for that. So our Fish and Wildlife Commission, which is a 7-member board appointed by the governor, and it represents all the different districts in the state. They put together what was probably the largest public process we've ever had to come up with a wolf plan. And that was first adopted in 2005. And that basically guided what would happen when wolves got here. And indeed they did. So in 2009, we had a radio collared wolf from Idaho, a female, come over, and we were able to verify, yep, we have a wolf and it's staying. So that was the first time we had a wolf that didn't, get struck or go back to Idaho. And that wolf did go on to be the breeding female for one of our first known packs in Oregon, the Imnaha pack, I believe. So, and then since then, the wolves that are here, they are all a result of natural migration or for the most part, natural reproduction in Oregon. Unlike other states, we have never manually gone out and captured wolves elsewhere and release them in Oregon. Everything is just natural migration and natural reproduction.
All based off of that original Yellowstone reintroduction or Yellowstone.
Yes,
pack.
yeah, and I think there was a release in Idaho as well. But it does show that all the the wolves in the Rocky Mountain states. There's there's connectivity between these wolves, meaning they're able to disperse. We had a very well-known wolf in Oregon, OR7. And when we say OR7, what that means is it was the 7th wolf collared in Oregon. It was a male from the Imnaha pack, that same pack from the first female wolf. And that wolf went from Northeast Oregon all the way to California, and it became the first known wolf in California since the 20s. So that was a big deal probably 5 to 8 years ago now or longer. And then that wolf ended up coming back, and it did pair up with a female wolf in Southwest Oregon. And that was the Rogue pack. And the Rogue pack still exists, although those original wolves aren't with the Rogue pack anymore. But wolves, they can naturally travel very long distances to find new territory and to mate. It happens all the time. But in the case of OR7, because the wolf was GPS collared, we were able to more closely follow its path. And it made the news, and just a ton of people were very interested in OR7's journey.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
Yeah.
OR7, following along with that, because it was like, it's a wolf, and it's west of the Cascades or seemingly. And pretty wild story, but that is truly pretty incredible how far they can migrate. I mean, that is a very long way. And so I guess going from that first pack that we had here, the verified pack, now how many packs are there in Oregon?
So I'm sorry, I have the number. So what we do in winter every year is we count wolves, and we call it our minimum known wolf count. And it's based on verifiable evidence. We can't count every single wolf, but we count, all of the tracks we observe, trail camera images. And last year, that number was 178. So 178 known wolves in Oregon. And there's more than 20 packs. Most of them are concentrated in Northeast Oregon. That's where we have our densest wolf numbers. But we are seeing wolves growing in Western Oregon, and we want to see that. So last year, we had 6 resident wolf groups in Oregon. Now, just for terminology's sake, let me just tell you that a pack is it's defined as 4 wolves traveling together in winter. So when we say a group, it means fewer than 4. But we had 6 resident wolf packs, and wolf groups, and we also had at least 4 breeding pairs of wolves. And a breeding pair is a group of wolves that produce 2 pups that year that survive through the end of the year. And it's kind of an important conservation metric for us. So it was great to see that happened last year, to have 4
This is really good
in
information.
Western Oregon.
In
Yeah.
Western Oregon, and so when you find that as Western Oregon, that's going from border to border, or is it concentrated in any specific area in there?
It's basically the top of the Cascades West.
Okay.
One thing that's kind of different about wolf management here is we still have part of the state where wolves are listed on the Federal Endangered Species Act, and that's basically the western 2/3 of the state. So west of highways 395, 78, 95, wolves are on the federal ESA. So and that kind of conflicts with our boundary. But in Oregon, again, we are seeing growing wolf expansion into Western Oregon and growing packs there. For example, we have wolves. We have the Metolius wolves, the White River wolves. So that's a little closer to Portland. And then we have the Indico pack, which is Jackson and Lane counties. We still have the Rogue pack. So, and we're continuing to see growth in Western Oregon.
So with that continued growth of wolf packs and the better, I guess, let me ask it this way: with the continued growth of wolf packs and wolves in Oregon, populating pretty well, what is the likelihood of encountering a wolf, I guess, when you're out there in the wild?
It's rare, but it does happen. You Elk hunters can be some of the people most likely to encounter a wolf because they're in remote areas, and elk are wolves' preferred prey. So it does happen, and if it does happen, really the best thing to do is just attempt to make sure the wolf knows you're there, because what we often see is that wolves will leave if they know you're there. We've got a great YouTube video. I think it has like 12 million views now. One of our interns was out, and a wolf was kind of was not that close to her, but was running in a meadow nearby, and it didn't know she was there. But once she made noise, it just took off. So, so that's typically what we see. We have had a couple encounters with elk hunters, and we've had some people in the outdoors in the forest, even in Southwest Oregon, that have seen wolves and had them, and seen them maybe a little bit closer. But thankfully, we've never had any kind of attack, as in physical contact, between a wolf and a person. And that's hasn't happened in all of the states where wolves were reintroduced, in Yellowstone and Idaho, in those states. So any kind of wolf attack is even more rare, much more rare than an encounter.
So looking at it with the growth here in Western Oregon, how many more wolves do you expect? How fast is this growth going to be here on this side of the Cascades?
Well, one thing we've never done with wolves is, like I said, we haven't tried to capture and release them elsewhere. We're just kind of letting wolves do what they're going to do. Wolves are habitat generalists, so they have the ability to thrive where when they have prey. So there's definitely a lot of good habitat in Northeast Oregon, in Western Oregon, but it's hard to say if how exactly they're going to populate Western Oregon. And we know areas where there's good habitat for them. But they're going to do what they're going to do. We also don't have a population cap on wolves. What we want to do is manage for conflict. So when we have wolves that are attacking livestock, or where we have problems with human conflict, then we may be doing things and interfering. But for example, we may allow livestock producers to kill wolves when they're repeatedly killing livestock, even when non-lethal measures are in place. But otherwise, wolves are just going to go where they're going to go.
How often is that happening? How often are encounters happening between people with livestock and wolves, and having issues associated with that?
It's certainly happening in Northeast Oregon, which again is our densest population of wolves. It's where, and we do see problems there, even with those livestock producers that are using non-lethal measures, things like flagging, livestock dogs, uh, fencing. There's all sorts of things that they can do, but unfortunately, we continue to see depredations by some packs, and we're working with producers on non-lethal measures. For example, Oregon Department of Agriculture has a program where they compensate producers with confirmed livestock losses, and they also provide some non-lethal measures like flagging, that kind of thing. So we're continuing to work. It's an ongoing problem, but unfortunately, that that just happens everywhere where there's wolves.
And what are
And
some?
when you think
Oh, go
about the
ahead.
wolf plan and how that came together, sort of how to deal with those situations is probably the toughest thing when it comes to wolf management.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen, some of that, and the ODFW has released some reports too, just about wolf poaching, and some things. I guess I don't know if poaching would be the right word for that, but
Well, there's definitely
illegally.
wolf poaching, and it's a definite problem, but that's in a separate category than wolves depredating livestock.
Yeah.
But there's poaching as well, and that's a definite problem too.
And I guess, what is the state doing for that when it comes to wolf poaching, and on how to try to control that?
Well, the state has a stop poaching program where we're really just trying to get the word out about how to recognize poaching. And if you do see poaching, how to report it. Um, if you do report, and that leads to an arrest or a conviction, you can actually win cash rewards. You could, of interest to hunters, if you report, you can actually win preference points, which are things you need to draw some of the most coveted hunts in Oregon. You need preference points. So you can get, for example, 5 preference points if you report someone and they end up being arrested for poaching a wolf. Now, with wolves, a lot of conservation groups have also come out to offer rewards, and you can actually earn nearly $12,000 if you report on the poaching of a wolf. And again, it leads to an arrest or conviction. So we have a website, or that Stop Poaching program has a website called Protect Oregon's Wildlife, and that has more information, and also, how to call the tip line. It's called
Perfect.
the Tip Line Turn In Poachers Line. And you may see, like, there's billboards around the state at different times of year. There's a whole campaign just trying to tell Oregonians how to recognize poaching and how to report it.
In the probably somewhat unlikely event that someone does encounter a wolf or sees signs of a wolf out in the wild, in the wilderness, and not talking about an issue of an attack or something like that, but just seeing one, is there something that they should do to report that to the state to help manage that and track where the wolves are?
So we do actually have a web page online, ODFW /wolves, where you can report wolf sightings. In some areas, it's pretty well documented that wolves are there. In fact, if you go on our website, odfw.com /wolves, we have maps of all known wolf activity. So in those areas, maybe it's not as important. But if it's an area where we don't know that there's wolf packs, or what we would call resident wolf activity, those reports are really critical, and they've helped us find and determine that we have resident wolf activity in a lot of different areas of the state. So that's really important. And again, that's at our website, odfw.com /wolves.
Perfect. Michelle, I have one final question for you, and then I'll let you go here. Are there obvious signs if a wolf is in the area, other than just seeing one? Are there things that people can look out for to be like, okay, maybe there is some wolf pack activity?
Tracks and scat would be, tracks and scat would tell you. And if you want to go check out our wolf maps, that can kind of give you a sense of where they are. I mean, wolves territories are very large, so there's no guarantee that you're ever going to see a wolf, even if you're in its territory, but that can give you an idea of where they are. And if you have some tracking skills, and you know what wolf prints and wolf scat looks like, then that'll also tell you that they're there.
Cool. Well, Michelle, thank you very much for taking some time to talk to me about this. I was really
Okay.
interested to find out more. Appreciate it. I know I'll let you
Yeah.
go and get out of
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Really appreciate her joining us here, and with Thanksgiving coming up and being able to do that interview. All right. So thank you everybody for joining us. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. We are live streaming on our YouTube channel, on Facebook, and of course on our apps and website. If you're watching on the apps and the website, we're going to continue on the show here for another 10, 15 minutes. Regardless of which platform you're on, we'll be back at 2 p.m. to talk about the Pioneer Square Christmas tree. The lighting ceremony is coming up. We're going to talk about what all goes into that. Like, how long has Portland been doing that? I wanted to find out more about the history, about how they just select the tree, and what to look forward to for this year. So we'll have that interview coming up at 2 p.m. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, I'll be back there for that. If you're on the website and apps, I'll talk to you sooner. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.